My wife helped me sunscreen my back at beach day today, twice. Reminds me of a joke I heard years ago. A TV reporter became lost on the back roads and stopped at a farm to get directions. As he was talking to the farmer, he noticed a pig with a wooden leg. This could be a great story for the 6 o'clock news. How did that pig lose his leg? He asked the farmer. Well, said the farmer, that's a very special pig. One night not too long ago we had a fire start in the barn, and that pig squealed so loud and long that he woke everyone, and by the time we got there he had herded all the other animals out of the barn, saved them all, and that was when he hurt his leg. Asked the journalist, anxious for a story. Nope, he pulled through that just fine, said the farmer, though a while later, I was back in the woods when a bear attacked me. Well, sir, that pig was nearby and he came running and rammed that bear from behind and then chased him off. He saved me for sure. Wow, so the bear injured his leg then? Questioned the reporter. He came away without a scratch, though a few days later, my tractor turned over in a ditch and I was knocked unconscious. Well, that pig dove into the ditch and pulled me out before I got cut up in the machinery. Ah, so his leg got caught under the tractor? Asked the journalist. No, we both walked away from that one, says the farmer. So how did he get the wooden leg? Asked the journalist. Well, the farmer replied, a pig that special shouldn't be eaten all at once. I've read this short story, can't recall the writer, might have been Frederick Brown, might have been Roald Dahl, about a man and wife in a hateful marriage. The man was super pale but obsessed with getting tanned. The wife killed him by slowly replacing all his sun lotion with vegetable oil. The guy got burned more and more and used more and more lotion. At some point he thought he was finally getting tanned, but actually his skin was burned to such degree it started to discolor. Yes, it was quite the morbid story. You have to apply it fairly liberally every 2 hours normally, probably every hour if you're sweating a lot, and immediately after you swim. I spent 4 10-hour days in Disney World 2 years ago during the summer and didn't burn at all because I put on sunscreen every hour, and I'm an insanely pasty white châtain that normally breaks out in a sun rash if I'm outside for more than 45 minutes. Edit, for everyone who disagrees with this, read the directions on the bottle or read this. https://www.tad.org/public/everydaycare/sun protection/sunscreen patients/sunscreen I never understood the difference in this until I was quite old actually. I'm 1/4 Inuit and 3/4 Danish and I do get sunburns, but it's like the second day, full sun, midsummer, all day and sun slightly scratchy burn kind of thing. I thought that was what people got when they talked sunburns. I realized on a vacation in Malta when I was about 18, that I had never had the proper sunburn before and couldn't get it in Denmark. Fuck, that shit sucked major balls. My brown husband learned this early on in our marriage, honeymoon, when my pale ass carried a bottle of sunblock everywhere we went in Maui and religiously applied it every 2 hours. I asked for help with my back once and despite my coaching, he missed about a 2x2 square that later turned lobster red. That was a very small price for an important lesson. Now he even reminds me if I go too long without. Keep an eye on that larger raised mole in the lower left. It already looks like it has some pigment difference towards the top, but it may have always been that way and only you would know that. Take a better photo and compare back frequently. If it changes shape, color, or bleeds spontaneously you should see a professional ASAP. 2 melanomas removed. Wear sunscreen. Dude. Sunburns aren't a joke. I cooked myself in the sun my entire life until I had melanoma. You probably know people that had skin cancer, but that's usually the other kinds of skin cancer. Melanoma will act like a mole until it can spread to every organ and murder you. Waves hello, fellow melanoma patient. Thankfully they caught mine at the second lymph node. A friend of mine, not so lucky. Now she's dead and I want to scream every time someone says, oh I just tan really well. I don't burn. Tan is skin damage. Our relationship's response. You should leave her. She's no good for you. She's actively trying to hurt you. R. Skincare addiction response. OMG, you need to learn better skin coverage strategies. And here are my favorite recommendations for ocean-safe sunscreen. R. Politics response. Your back looks just as bad as how Trump left America. Trump is the devil. Let's discuss more about Trump. R. Gaming response. You could totally turn that into a Mario Kart track. R. Today a learned response. Tell you can use an UV camera to see where you missed. R. Relationship advice response. You must have deserved it, somehow. She should dump you immediately, and block you across every form of contact. A good husband wouldn't complain so much about little mistakes, and certainly wouldn't shame her on social media. R. I'm an asshole response. Overwhelmingly, Op's wife is a horrible, awful, irredeemable person. R. SpaceX response. Politely removed for not being relevant to SpaceX. I don't think it's your wife's fault necessarily. This happened to me a few years ago. We bought a sunscreen spray, name brand too, not some cheap shit, instead of lotion. My wife sprayed my back and spread the liquid around with her hands to make sure I am covered. It didn't matter at all. I looked like this by noon. She started crying and was really apologetic. I told her it's not her fault and threw out the spray immediately. Get a proper lotion instead of the stupid spray. When I was 16, me and Buddy got a summer job doing concrete. Well, obviously, it's summertime, and one day he takes off his shirt and asks me to put sunscreen on his back. I wasn't comfortable touching another boy's back, so I just kinda did it real quick and said it was good. By the end of the day his back looked just like this. It still makes laugh when I think about it. Lol, my husband and I just spent a week in the FL Keys and did a ton of snorkeling. I bought spray-on waterproof, sweat-proof SPF 100 banana boat sunscreen before we left, and we both oozed it liberally. I burned evenly. I come from a family with lots of redheads. My hair is light brown, but I got the fair complexion. My husband's back looks like hops, and I even rubbed it in a bit after I sprayed him. We've been back home for a few days and are both itchy and peeling. While in FL I saw a TV commercial saying banana boat sunscreen was now reef safe. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it. We lived in Hawaii for 3 years, 10 plus years ago, while husband was in the army, and I never had the problem there. I learned reefs were dying from sunscreen and wore SPF protective rash guards most of the time though. I'm really glad the reefs are being more protected, but my crispy back needs something that works lol. Those will be some fun tan lines. I did something like this to my husband. In my defense, I did what was asked of me. He has tan skin and doesn't burn easily, so told me to only put the sunscreen on his shoulders because that's the only place he gets burned. So I did just that, but I guess I also wiped my hand on his back in one spot. Well, apparently spending more time indoors and losing some of his color also meant he burns more than he used to. So he had a pretty severe sunburn in the middle of his back. Then it faded into the craziest tan. He had uneven line along his shoulder blades where his skin tone drastically changed. But worst of all was the random strip of white where I guess I smeared the sunscreen off my hand. He was pretty annoyed with me. And then it took 2 years for the tan to go away. Everyone would laugh at it and he was so embarrassed. That happened to me as a kid. My mom used a spray sunscreen on me when we were at the beach and I wound up with stripes. Looking back, it was a little funny because I was wearing a dark blue swimsuit with stars, so we joked I wound up looking like an American flag with the stripes, but the week of pain sucked. Over a decade later and I still won't touch spray-on sunscreen. It seems the back is the hardest place to apply even if someone else does it. I don't think I've ever successfully went in the sun without getting back sunburn at least in one spot. It's even worse if I try to apply it myself. https://i.imgur.com/dtsbow.jpg. Of course being a ginger does not help my case here lol. Proof that spraying sunscreen puts 20% of it onto your skin and 80% into the lungs of those standing close by. Who came up with the idea to spray it? I'll tell you, the chemical companies that figured out that by spraying instead of spreading it, you will need 4 times more product to get the same coverage since most of it blows away. Genius. Really, as a frequent inhaler of this sprayed shit, fuck you chemical companies. And to those people who spray it within 50 feet of other people, seriously? I actually saw a video from Physics Girl recently where she looked at this stuff through the lens of a UV camera, which was really cool. The coolest of which was when she was spraying the compressed sunscreen, which is what appears to have been used here. It was like UV spray paint. As she went over sections, the skin would be painted black in the UV camera. Of course, in normal light it didn't look like anything at all, but in UV, the sunscreen absorbed all of the UV light, making anything it was sprayed on to appear very dark, black. The effect was so cool and consistent, that they actually spray painted a U-Haul truck, trailer with it and made designs and stuff. Switched to a visible spectrum, regular camera shot, and it was just a U-Haul, but in the UV camera, it was all tagged and stuff. Just like how we have paints, spray paints, body paints, that make things, or you, appear green or red or fuchsia or whatever. Sunscreen is basically the same, but with UV. It's interesting, and kind of demonstrated exactly how this stuff works. We might not be able to see UV with our puny human eyes, but it's definitely there, and sunscreen really does absorb it, and usually, it did a really good job at it. She also described the biological mechanism of the body's reaction to UV and how melanin protects our skin cells, and why tanning worked, and the mechanisms that make us darker on UV exposure. Really cool stuff. I'll see if I can find the video. It sent me down a rabbit hole of UV information, and science is right, sunscreen works, and it's super cool how it works. ITT, people in this thread blaming the wife, as if Op himself isn't also clearly clueless about how to use sunscreen. Edit. Jesus Christ, people, you can clearly feel if someone just sprays a line over your shoulder or if they actually spread it all over with their palm. The truth is that Op also doesn't know how to apply sunscreen, didn't spot anything wrong, and probably would have sunscreened others just as bad. Edit 2. I'm guessing a bunch of Redditors also apparently don't know how to apply sunscreen but think for some reason that it is somebody else's responsibility. Well, the real questions are how long you were at the beach, if it was spray sunscreen, and what the SPF of the sunscreen was. The experts recommend to reapply every 90 minutes. Spray sunscreen has to be used really generously to get the same effect as normal lotion. And maybe the SPF was too low for your skin type or the intensity of the sun. So when I hear you applied it twice, that doesn't necessarily mean it was enough, especially if you spent a whole day out there. My guess is based on these streaks it was spray sunscreen, wasn't actually rubbed in, and not nearly enough was sprayed on either. When I was a teenager we took a trip to the beach. My parents made fun of me for how particular I was about full sunscreen coverage. I hate sunburns and they will turn me into a giant grumpy baby, and I didn't want it to ruin the rest of my vacation. I ended the day with a nice tan, and my stepmom had sunburn tiger stripes just like this guy. She wasn't laughing on the flight home. I'm the opposite. I'm half Native American/Mexican and don't need much sunscreen. But my wife, who is all Central European, will slather 3 thick layers of SPF 50. She will buy no lesser SPF, so help me God, on my back, shoulders, and arms, which I can reach 90% of my back. I just need her for that last bit I can't reach on my back. The crease of your armpit is the worst. At least she got a majority of that. Ibuprofen and go to the local pharmacy and see if they make their own sunburn lotion. I live underwater, so my local pharmacy makes their own lots of lidocaine and aloe, as much as they are allowed. It's pretty amazing. Lol, my GF did this to me once. I had clear handprints on my back. Now when I hand her the sunscreen I make her stop and pay attention. She'll be talking to a friend and I'll go, excuse me, please stop talking for 1 minute while you apply this because you obviously cannot multitask. My GF is pretty much the same. It's not like she doesn't want to help, but she always ends up not using enough of the stuff. You'd think it's worth its weight in gold or something. Only way around that is with a spray. I spray the appropriate amount on my back myself and she just has to rub it in, usually with much complaining that her hands get all sticky of course. D. What factor sunscreen? And was it water resistant? Pale skin equals factor 50 all the way. More than likely with that heat, one would sweat. Water resistant sunscreen makes a big difference at the beach. And the wise rule of thumb, reapply every couple of hours. Pardon my skepticism, but back in the day I went out on my friend's boat with some buddies. We're in the canal headed to the main lake and it's early in the morning but the sun was already kicking so I grabbed my sunscreen and started applying, to which my buddies all did as well. I asked if somebody could get my back for me and I was met with laughter and stupidity. That's gay. Putting sunscreen on a guy's back is some gay shit, they said as they struggled to reach their own backs. So I waited an hour or so until we got to the boat party thing we were headed to and I asked the first woman I saw if she could get my back for me, to which she obliged. Fast forward 6 hours on our way back to the boat launch and all of my friends' backs looked exactly like yours, so I'm calling BS. It looks like you tried to apply sunscreen yourself and failed miserably. The wife, an excellent middle manager, had mastered the 80-20 rule. Don't overdo it. Done is better than perfect. If it doesn't work out, improve on your next try. The husband, a disappointed 30-something with second-degree burns, felt that there was room for improvement with her lotion skills. A few years ago we went to Hawaii and went snorkeling. We get there and I apply sunscreen to my wife's neck and shoulders. That evening she's got a burn below her neck and blames me. Turns out she wore a beach wrap down to the water. When she took it off, it exposed an oval of skin above her swimsuit and below the wrap. On a trip to Mexico I attempted to put on my own sunscreen. Cue laugh track as at the end of the day you can see precisely where every finger of my hand connected and missed. Little fingers spread hand-shaped white spots surrounded by angry red. I get mocked for taking twice as long as everyone else getting sunscreened up, but I'm not taking any chances on a repeat. I've done this to myself before on my front side. The problem is that you need to be a good distance away to get even coverage with spray-on sunscreen. But the beach can be windy, so you tend to spray closer. Really need to still rub in the spray-on variety, or just stick with a lotion. Hold the can further back, and apply like 3x more than you did. It really needs the coverage for spray sunscreen to work. This is the reason the cream style works best for some people. Even if it's an oily mess to apply, at least you know you are covered. My husband and I were in the Bahamas for our 10th anniversary and I couldn't wait to get into that clear water that I'd only seen on TV, never in person. I did his back, handed him the sunscreen and said, "You do the rest. I'm going into the water." By the time he left the beach he had 2 clearly visible circles where he'd attempted to put sunscreen on his chest, and 2 white handprints where he'd wiped the sunscreen off his hands onto the sides of his belly, and everything else around them was bright pink. It looked like a signature on the cave paintings at Lascaux. Spray sunscreen should never be used in windy conditions. Which obviously means beach is always out lol. That stuff is nonsense honestly. Pretty sure most of them tell you you're supposed to rub it around to ensure coverage anyway, so it totally negates the whole don't have to get my hands all gross bit. I will never understand how people who don't know how to use something decide to not read directions. Then if they do read the directions, they decide it's too hard and do it however they want. If the can says, hold 10-12 inches and spray with slow consistent strokes until even coverage is achieved, why do you think it's okay to hold it 3 inches away and just randomly flail your arms? Did you think it was just going to spread out on its own? I am of the melanated variety, my husband is in fact not, and every time we go outside for extended periods, I slather him in sunblock, make sure any skin is covered and check on him every 2 hours for a reslathering. The first time we went on an outside outing he was sunburned so bad I was applying aloe vera on him for days. I felt so bad.